Yo, what's up, everybody? It is Wednesday, August 24th. I have jury duty tomorrow, man. I'm going to try to get out of that. Anyway, the market was up today. Like I said it would be. We had a Social Security payment. Yesterday, we had a positive net flow of about $8 billion. So the deficit for August through the 23rd is $194 billion. That's good. Today, obviously, with the Social Security payment, we'll see the numbers on the Treasury statement tomorrow, but that's going to put us over $200 billion for the month. That's good. So the market was up, but still a lot of rate jitters. We saw Fed fund futures today pricing in. This is crazy. I mean, today they're pricing in a 75 basis point rate hike in September. Yesterday it was a 50 basis point. I mean, when you think about it, it's like comical, man. Like, what is that? The futures market is a reflection of traders' bets on what they think the Fed is going to do. And then the Fed, this Fed in particular, the Powell Fed, just follows what the markets tell them. So, really, do we even need this system? I mean, do we have to go through a nomination and a confirmation process, taking up time in Congress that could be devoted to other things? When you basically can program a computer. I mean, if Powell is just following the market, which is exactly what he's done over the course of his tenure so far. I mean, do we even need an FOMC? I mean, you could program a computer to just, hey, whatever the freaking FedWatch tool is saying, then just do that. I mean, that's what the Fed is doing. It is completely, given up or has a total lack of understanding of its position as a monopolist price setter. I mean, the irony was that Powell was right and Yellen, and they're both bozos. They were both right last year when they said it was transitory. The whole inflation thing was based on pandemic. I mean, we're starting to see that now. I mean, lumber prices have collapsed. Used car prices are coming down. Housing prices are, anyway, so yesterday was a 50 basis point probability hike in September. Today is a 75. Who knows? Tomorrow could go back to 50. But this week has been dominated by rate fears. All right. And it's this Jackson Hole, which, by the way, is a beautiful place. If you've never been there, Wyoming is beautiful. Jackson Hole, I went skiing there. I love the summers out there. It's not far from Yellowstone. It's just beautiful. So they're all out there hobnobbing, and everybody's uptight because everybody's a monetarist, and so the slightest little thing that comes out, they're ready to sell the market. But today was up. We had a Social Security payment, like I said, but it couldn't hold the higher levels. So that tells me that there's still a lot of worry. There's still a lot of concern and angst. Oh, and here's the other thing that happened today, and you've heard this already. And this, to me, like, I'm going to go through this from an MMT, kind of a perspective, all right? So Biden said he was going to, and this was already yesterday, they were talking about this, that he was going to announce that they were going to cancel $10,000 of student debt based on people who earn $125,000 or less, all right? And this is this is like a really, really divisive. I've just been, looking at the Twitter feeds today, and just like, people are heated on both sides. Like, everything in this country now every issue in this country now seems to be highly, highly divisive. The only issue which is not highly divisive is apparently unbridled militarism and endless war. It's only like fringe opposition to that, and you would put me in that category. Like, that really, really pisses me off. I'm sick and tired of endless wars and constant militarism. Put me in that category. But I'm a minority. I'm a minority in that category. Most people are for it. I mean, you can't go to a ball game without, F-18s flying over. So we love that here. That is the only issue in the United States of America that is not divisive. Everything else is highly, highly divisive, to the point where I think we're close to the point of being, in a civil war. So let's talk about this. First of all, I said I'm going to talk about this from an MMT perspective, because the people who are against it, they're saying, hey, I shouldn't be held responsible to foot the bill for somebody who's not paying. I paid my loans, okay? I paid my loans. I shouldn't have to foot the bill. All right. First of all, you're not footing the bill. Like, unless the government were to send out specifically a tax demand, like if you got a tax demand in the IRS specifically saying this is for the cancellation of the debt and you owe X. And even in that case, and I'm going to get to this, even in that case, you're not really paying for it. But let's just talk about the current the current fiscal situation. The fact that a couple of things I want to mention here. Number one, the fact that the government runs a deficit. By definition, it means it puts more money into the economy than it takes away. Okay? It adds. I mean, I do this every day with you guys. What's the deficit? It's 200 billion. Okay, that's a net addition of 200 billion to the economy's financial balances. If the government is running a deficit, which it does all the time, it is adding more than it takes away. So nobody is paying for any loans, okay? That's a reality. Nobody is paying for any loans. The fact of the matter, and listen, I understand that even though it's running a deficit, we might, and that's the equivalent of basically sending out checks. And you might say, well, Mike, I didn't get a check. Okay, it's not all distributed equally, but it's put into the economy, like I talk about the swimming pool, and eventually it circulates around and you get it indirectly in one way or another. Either that means a higher level of economic activity, which ostensibly means you should be able to earn more money, or the company that you work for, maybe they earn some more money and that trickles down to you. Maybe not. Maybe instead they use that money to buy up shares. And if you invest, which I try to help you with, you're indirectly getting the benefit of that. Okay, so let's just understand. You're not paying for this. All right? The other thing is this, when it comes to taxes, and people don't understand this, I mean, all spending by government is new money, okay? All spending. Taxes can only be paid once the government puts money into the system, okay? Nobody has dollars until the government spends those dollars into existence. It's like, let's say, because I always use the swimming pool analogy, right? Let's say I tell you, okay, go drain the pool. All right, you go over to the pool, there's no water in it. You say, Mike, how can I drain the pool? There's no water in it. You got to put water in it for me to drain it. Ah, yeah, that's right. I'm the water supplier, okay? I'm the government. I'm the dollar supplier. I'm the water supplier. You got to fill the pool up before you can drain it. So the draining, and I go over this with you guys every single day. I say, is it an addition, a net flow? Is it a drain? You got to fill it up first before you can drain it. So what are taxes? They're not funding anything. The government puts the money in to the swimming pool, to the economy, by virtue of the fact that it just spends it into existence. And then it collects some back And we could argue all day about how taxes are unfair and, you know, they should be, you know, kind of done in a different way. That's fine. That's a separate argument. And I'll do that with you guys all day long if you want. All right, like if you want to do this kind of moral argument on the student loan stuff, if you want to know my position, I'll tell you my position. I don't care. Like, I paid off my student loans. I pay my kids. If somebody's getting a break, look, I think, how can I put this? The cancellation fiscally, now again, I'm talking sheer fiscal. I'm not talking any moral arguments or anything ethical or, you know, moral. Fiscally, the cancellation is the same thing as a tax cut. All right? Both are fiscal equivalents of like the government sending out a check. All right? When your student loan gets canceled, that's fiscally the same thing as you getting a check for $10,000 and paying off that loan. When your taxes get cut, that's fiscally the same thing as you getting a check to pay off what would have been due were it not for that tax cut. Okay? Now, if you want to get angry about something, and let's face it, the rich have been getting these checks, you know, for 40 years in the form of tax cuts that favored them. I mean, when Ronald Reagan came into office, I think the top marginal tax rate was like 75%. It was actually in Kennedy's years, it was 90-something%. I think it was 93. When Reagan came in, it was like 75, and then it was cut down to 35. Like, rich people benefited enormously from that. That was like a doubling of their income overnight. And that's the same thing as the government. Hey, whatever rich people made back in, you know, 1980, 1981, let's say then rich was 250,000. The government sent them a check for 250,000. That's basically what it was. So this is, let's face it, this has been happening all the time. If we want to have an argument, like a moral argument, or what's an argument about what's fair and what's not fair, I mean, we could be into this for days, for weeks. Like, I don't want to pay for militarism and fucking, you know, money to Ukraine. Okay? You want to go have this conversation? We could have this conversation. I'm just talking about from an MMT standpoint and a fiscal standpoint. It's all the same stuff, okay? Like, a tax cut is the same thing as a spending increase, is the same thing as a check being sent out. A tax increase is the same thing as a spending cut, is the same thing as the government spending less, you know, filling up the pool less or draining out the pool. Once you start to understand it in those terms, then hopefully you can stop with this, I'm paying for this stuff. And you know what that does? That just puts us against one another. That's just so fucking divisive. Excuse my language. It's really divisive. And you know, in this country, like, we're on the verge of a civil war here. Like, everybody either hates everyone or is envious of some other person. Really. And it's all, I think it's all being orchestrated from the top, and they're loving it, because as we go after each other, as the hatred and the envy for each other, you know, builds and builds and festers and gets more intense and more heated, I mean, they're just up there, you know, pulling it, taking everything from us, engaging in these, you know, wars and regime change and all this crap. So, and it's not, and by the way, the other thing, yeah, I was going to say this. One of the reasons why the market lost some of its gains, this is funny actually, because one of the reasons today, I think one of the reasons why the market lost some of its gains, like it closed up, all the averages closed up, but off their highs, is that as soon as that, debt cancellation was announced, everybody freaked out because it's like, oh, that's inflationary. That's inflationary. which it is not. Let me say this. Spending is not inflationary. What caused the inflation, wait, let me repeat. Let me rephrase it. Spending is not inflationary as long as output is able to meet that demand. And that has always been the case, except for we just went through the pandemic, which was an unprecedented situation of supply disruptions and labor shortages and everything like that. But that stuff is starting to normalize now. In reality, spending, you could actually make a very good argument that it reduces inflation because spending induces the private sector to produce more, right? We're in a capitalistic system. When people have more money to spend, there's an incentive for producers to produce more because they're profits. They're profit driven. A capitalist system is profit driven. So spending by government or the private sector induces firms to produce more. There's more output, and more output means that prices should not rise, and in many cases they should come down. And now really, we're talking about a global economy. It's a closed system. I mean, there's so much international trade. Well, that's been kind of screwed up too with the sanctions, unfortunately. But we were in a kind of a closed system because of global trade. But that, there's been some disruption, some breakage in the links there, and that's residual, and it's gonna hang on. But I don't like this divisiveness. I mean, I just think it's terrible. I think it's awful. And now we're pitted against each other. And every single issue is like, we're ready for a civil war. As if, we're already facing like World War III with this escalation of, how come nobody got upset? I mean, Biden just announced another $3 billion for Ukraine on top of the 50-something billion that he already sent over there. There's no problem with that. Like, we have no problem, and nobody ever asks how we're going to pay for it when it comes to war and militarism. Am I the only one who feels this way? So, I guess that's the update for today. I'm actually thinking about maybe ending this YouTube channel. I don't know. I've been doing this a long time, and it doesn't get a lot of views. I don't know if it's worth my while to do it anymore, but I'll keep it going a little bit longer. But I've been thinking about ending this channel and just, sticking with my report and emails and stuff like that. But I'll let you know if I do. Anyway, that's it for today, folks. Have a good one. Tomorrow I have jury duty. I don't know if I'm going to be selected. I got this thing in the mail. I already had one postponement. So we'll see what happens. Bye.